Morning, good morning. Hey, welcome to Buckhead Church. Come on in if you're still out in the hallway. Come on in if you have not found a table or a spot. You're welcome to find one. We are so excited about today. Is anybody else excited about today? A day that we thought about, excited about for a time. My name is Scroggins. I am of our areas. So I lead a church in Alpharetta called North Point Community Church, and we are planted right on the north end of the Fulton County School District. But we are so excited to be able to host this event at Buckhead Church today. This is another one of our churches. We have 6 churches in the Atlanta area, and Buckhead Church is by far our coolest, and it's the one that makes us all jealous. So when I come here, I look around and go, wow, this place is amazing. Our church is just a little bit more tired than this place. I don't know if you feel that way about your school. Do you ever go to a new school and you go, wow, this seems like this is fantastic? If you do, we do the same thing in the church world. Hey, I just want to welcome you. I just want to say thank you for being here. Thanks for being a part of today. You know, the beauty of today is that we have a lot of different faiths represented. We have a lot of different schools represented. We have a lot of different ideologies represented about how the world should work. But the thing that unites us all is that we all want to do everything we can do to set up kids to make great decisions, to get great education so that they can have the brightest future possible. And that really is the common theme that all of us have, that we have in common. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm excited about what might come of this. I know a lot of you have been to Fulton County Faith Summits before. This is my first one, so I feel new. I've got all this new rookie energy, I guess you could say, but I'm just excited about today. I'm excited about the relationships that are going to happen, and I'm excited about some of the ideas that are going to come out of this. How many of you are educators in the room? Great. Let me tell you, here's one of the things we do have in common, though. I don't know, do you ever get this, educators? I thought about you because it's the summer, and I'm sure a lot of people go, oh, you're off for the summer, right? I mean, what do you do all summer? I'm sure people say things like that. Meanwhile, you're at work every day during the summer, grinding, right? Trying to figure out how you can make what you do even better. The same thing happens to us in church world. Every single Sunday, someone goes, oh, well, you're off during the week, right? You just work on Sundays. And then during the week, you just play. And we're going, no, we actually do stuff during the week. We've got jobs. We've got things we've got to do, meetings we have to attend, responsibilities we have to take care of. So I relate to that, educators, that you have that. Oh, it's the summer. You must be off and not doing anything. When the furthest could not be, it couldn't be any less true about what you actually do. So thank you. We have this little banner behind me, this little sign. This is our theme for the summer. I walked in and I thought, oh, we should have taken that down because this is not what we do on Sunday. But then I thought, no. That is perfect for today because we really believe that you're heroes. We genuinely believe that what you do, the way you sacrifice your time, your energy, yourself, your talents, and your gifts, we believe that you're a hero. A hero is somebody who saves the day. A hero is someone who says, hey, I'm going to lay down my life so that someone else can live. And that's what so many of you do on a regular basis. So thank you. We really do want you to leave today feeling like a hero. The main role I have today, other than just saying welcome to you, is to introduce the keynote speaker. It is an honor and a privilege of mine to get to introduce Dr. Jeff Rose. I've been sitting on a Faith Summit think tank, a group of people that were just thinking about, hey, how could we make this day the most special, most strategic, most important day for those of us who are faith leaders in the community? And I was so honored to get to be a part of it, and I have genuinely enjoyed getting to know Dr. Rose. For one, he is an incredibly humble person. You would never know all of the accolades that he comes with. However, I had already heard about him, and I had already heard about some of the work that he had done in Beaverton, Oregon, which is the 3rd largest school district in the state of Oregon. And we were familiar with, through some people on our team, Brian Appenis and Amira, we have met some of the people that helped with some of the faith community in Beaverton, help integrating some of the people of faith with some of the schools in Beaverton. And I had heard all about it, and I thought that is masterful, the way that was orchestrated. I don't know if you've noticed this in life. There's a lot of dualistic thinking. It's got to be either this way or this way. If it's not this way, it must be this way. But often in life there's a third way. And I feel like what Dr. Rose was able to do in Beaverton was really a third way. Faith communities shouldn't take over schools, but schools shouldn't ostracize faith communities. That really there's a third way where we can work together to help kids. And it's amazing what happened in Beaverton. And I'm just excited about bringing a little bit of that into this community to try to figure out how we can help school systems as well. And I just feel like we won the lottery by getting to have Dr. Rose be the superintendent here. But here's what I like most about Dr. Rose, and I didn't tell you this, Jeff, before I told you I was going to introduce you, but I don't know that I've ever met many men that are sharper dressers than Dr. Jeff Rose. This guy is flossy. I mean, his threads are amazing. Every time I have been around him, he looks so sharp. And that's important, right? Because if you're going to represent Fulton County, please look good doing it. You know what I mean? Because how you feel really does matter in regards to how you look. And I want to make sure that we're a community that feels good. And if we feel good, we got to look good. And this is a man that's always looking good. So thank you, Dr. Rose, for being so sharp. Hey, why don't you do this? If you would you help me? Would you put your hands together, make a little noise? Let's give a warm welcome for Dr. Jeff Rose.
Floss. Flossy? So I felt really good, and now I'm just up here feeling a little bit self-conscious. So good morning. Really happy, very excited, motivated, and anxious, actually, about today. So we'll start mellow. I want you to open your hymns to page 302. Actually, I want to start by thanking Buckhead and obviously North Point. This facility is amazing. It's incredible. And the fact, we could actually not do this without this partnership. We didn't have the ability to find a place centrally located, a place that has the ability to set up in this particular way, a place that has a microphone so fancy. You see that? I feel like a boy band. So the way the day is going to work is this. This is, it says keynote. It's not actually too much of a keynote. I'm going to talk a little bit about this conceptually, the concept of partnership and relationship, and just talk about that concept. We are going to have some people join us on stage to give some examples of what this is currently looking like as well as what it could look like in the future. And then the main goal of today is that. The main goal of today is an opportunity for people just to talk. And that's really important. I've experienced the importance of that people can just chat. We do not have a target. You don't have to complete an assignment. We are not going to check you at the door to see what you accomplished in conversations. But we are going to talk at you for a bit, and then you are going to talk with one another, if that makes sense. I'm going to start by setting this up and really talk about the why behind this discussion. And I want to start by being a broken record. If you've heard me talk before, you've heard me ask this question. And the question is, whose job is it to educate and raise kids? Whose job is that? And so the obvious answers we always start with make tremendous sense. It's clearly a parent's job, obviously. Right? They're the first and foremost teachers in a child's life. We know that. The other thing about education, we'd say, well, it's a teacher's job. Of course it's a teacher's job. That's what they're paid to do. That's their profession. And that's also true. The dilemma is this. It's too complicated. It's actually too complicated. I have 2 kids at home, and I love them more than any other children, and that's complicated. Just 2 of them. As a 4th and 5th grade teacher, I had just under 30 students, and even when I was on my A game, every day I knew that I left needs on the table of my kids that were not being met. Every single day. So the concept is, it is too complicated. And the hierarchy of needs, you know what I'm referring to when I talk about hierarchy of needs? That's real. That is real. So there are parents, community members, teachers, that because of issues of capacity can't focus on education the way that we would hope them to be able to do. We can pass judgment, and we can say everybody should be focusing on the education of their kids, and some people really seem apathetic to that. But is it really apathy, or is it just because maybe there's needs that aren't being met in that particular home, which could be issues of poverty, it could be trauma, it could be drama, and the fact is that happens in every one of our schools. So it becomes just extremely complicated. So the bottom line is we can't solely rely on parents and teachers. So can we agree to that? You're supposed to say amen, right? Isn't that the way it works? So we are recognizing and understanding that we can't rely just on those two entities, which is true. So our county, Fulton County Schools, is humbly admitting that we need more. We need to build our capacity. Regardless of our talents and our incredible educators, we're trying to admit we need more, and we can't just point finger at parents. We have to rely on them, but we can't point fingers. So what entities, if you think about this concept, and this is overused. It's overused when we say, well, it takes a village, right? We know that people use that all the time. But think about the village or think about the community. What entities in a community are focused on serving more than or beyond their immediate family? What entities? Well, I think the first two that you'd come up with are our faith-based communities and our schools. Would those not be the first two things in a community? They're pillars to every community. And so the fact is, when we ask the question of whose job is it to educate and raise kids, it is ours. And the question is, how do we actually do that? What does that look like? So I didn't know exactly what this looked like in Fulton County. So my leadership at the beginning of this year in the fall just really started with me asking lots of questions. I remember meeting one-on-one with Samantha Maxey. Sam, does everybody know Sam? If you don't, you should, you will. Sam, thanks. And I just said, so what do we do? How does Fulton County Schools partner with our faith-based entities throughout the entire county? And she described some of the really impressive things happening in some schools, and she described this Faith Summit. And I said, all right, so tell me about this Faith Summit and how that works. And she told me. She talked about usually when it was in the year, the kind of conversation, and I said, that sounds phenomenal. And I said, but then what? So we have the summit. What comes after the summit? And we actually had a hard time answering that question, to be honest. What does Fulton County Schools collectively do after the summit? So I said, no summit. Remember the soup Nazi from Seinfeld? No soup for you? I said, no summit. Not because it doesn't matter to me, but actually because it matters too much to me. And so I started thinking, I don't want to just do a summit. I want the summit, when we have it, to be the beginning of something different and more impressive and inspirational than we've done in the past. That is our job. That is my job. So the problem was I didn't know how to do that. I did have some experience, like Clay was mentioning. I've seen some amazing things happen and been a part of also a movement. But here in Georgia, here in Fulton County, I didn't know how to do that. So I asked Sam, I said, you have to help me gather some wise people. Can we just get some people in the room? Because I do believe in the power of collaboration. I do believe if you have the right people around a table and you're talking about the right thing in the middle of the table, incredible things can be solved. So she did. So she gathered what we call the think tank. That was the best name I could come up with that wasn't an acronym. And so I just asked, gather some people and let's just start talking. So I just want to start by also recognizing those people, and I may leave some people off the list. So first, Candace Wynn from Impact Church. Would you stand and stay standing, please? Clay Scroggins and Amira Joe from North Point Church, also stand. Francilla Perryman from Mount Pisgah Church. Joshua Heller from Congregation B'nai Torah. Chip Sweeney and Tammy Lopez from Perimeter Church. and Pamela Perkins-Carn from Interfaith Children's Movement. I want to say thank you. Really appreciate it. So we just gathered around our table a number of times this year and just said, so what would that look like? Before jumping into a summit, let's talk about before the summit, but even more importantly, after the summit. And so we began to talk. We talked about issues of strategy, infrastructure, momentum, and we also started talking about some of the reasons why not. Like why this doesn't happen. Have you ever asked yourself the question, why is it that every school, every single school, can't point to this budding relationship and partnership with a faith-based entity? Why is that? And by the way, that is the case. So bottom line is, and this is some of my own kind of thinking, but two reasons, I think. One is we don't know how. That tends to be a reason. Right? I've talked with a number of faith-based leaders who want to, but not necessarily know how. How do you start? And by the way, sometimes it's actually not in our, educational DNA to know how to open the door to that conversation either. So one, we don't know how, and two, I think is fear. I think there is a fear. I went to principal school. I've been to a lot of schooling, and I have learned a lot about legal issues in this work. And let's face it, there is a line. There is a legal line of separation of church and state. And it is what it is, and it's very clear. So what we tend to do, I've noticed, is with that line, we look at it, we honor it, and we kind of step back from it. Because to step close is scary. So this is a safe spot. This provides an opportunity for us to be safe. What I've also learned is that it's very realistic to be able to walk up to the line and literally shake hands over it. Yes, we should be very careful not to cross that legal line. But it should not prohibit the ability for us to come up and talk over the line, because the fact is, we have the same interests and needs to serve our kids. And by the way, it's our job. It's our collective job, because we just agreed to that earlier. So the question is, so how do you do that? Bottom line is, we don't have that at every school. We do not have that at every school. And I will tell you, and as Clay was mentioning, I've seen it through infrastructure, through motivation, work. And this is what I think it takes. I think, number one, it takes people willing to say, it is our collective job. It takes a school leader to be able to be humble and open the doors when somebody knocks. It takes a faith-based entity, a church, a synagogue to knock on the door. And it takes a recognition of a couple of things, and that has to do with the difference between a project. A project is fantastic, and we don't want to say no to projects. We are thankful for projects. But there's a difference between a project and a relationship. And there's also a difference between, let's think of it as a kind of a building block. You have projects, you have partnership, and then you have relationship. And if you ask me to define it, well, it's tricky to do, but I can tell you when I see it. So it takes an awareness that there is a difference. Partnership, project, relationship. It also takes language. There needs to be some language that describes what this is and what this isn't, to protect and provide safety so people are willing to walk up to the line. By the way, it also takes infrastructure, organization, and personnel. Because you can't just cross your fingers and say, I hope good people do the right work. You have to start there, but you also need to support it. And we have some work to do as far as that goes. Number one, from a school district perspective, we have some work to do. The reason I introduced Sam earlier is Sam is actually, we've established a new job in communications for Sam. Sam is now, we have a now person focused on this work. We haven't had that in the past. But we're trying to build infrastructure around this so that if an institution, a faith-based institution, were to knock on our door and we don't answer, we have an ability to connect. Or a school has a particular need but doesn't know where to go, we have a strategy on how to reach out. So we're starting to build that infrastructure. We will also need infrastructure established from our faith-based organizations and community. And then we need to meet and talk and constantly work on that strategy, because it won't just happen collectively by crossing our fingers. Because what we experience now is amazing work in Fulton County. And you're going to hear about some of those examples here in just a few minutes. Amazing examples. The dilemma is, and I saw it in one of the least church states in the nation, where over 80% of our schools got to the place where they said, yes, we have either a partnership or a relationship beyond projects. Why in Fulton? We live in Georgia, y'all, right? Why do you see it? I'm good, right? I live here now. Why is it in Fulton County not every single school, 100% of our schools can say, I have a tight, focused relationship or partnership that puts us together around the table, focused on the needs of our, as in the collective sense, kids. Regardless of school and community, because every school has needs and they're always different. And by the way, that's a gift. I think that's possible in Fulton County. Driving around, I think that's possible in Fulton County. And then what I've learned over this past year is it is, but it's going to take something different after the Faith Summit. It's going to take something different. And so our intent today is that we are kind of in this building mode, and we are also going to learn from some impressive work currently happening. I also want to mention the hero sign behind me. I think it's apropos. It makes tremendous sense, because what I know is when we think about heroes, your first thought in your head, which is kind of interesting, is right typically what we're programmed to think about. Somebody with a cape, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, that kind of thing. However, if you were to sit down with somebody and they were to ask you an honest question of who are your heroes, you wouldn't mention Superman, right? That would make you weird. But you would mention somebody else. I would mention my parents, even though I didn't treat them like heroes growing up. I would mention Mrs. Zemer, my fourth grade teacher. Despite making life really hard for her and others, she loved me and let me know that. I would mention Dr. Burke when I was in college, who I didn't have a relationship with, but in one instant noticed something in me that I had never noticed about myself. I've had heroes, and so have you. So the concept is this: if we don't step up and aren't willing to be heroes and truly focus on the trajectory of the life of kids, who does? I think that is us. So I think this sign is perfect. I'm glad we did not take that down. We're going to now morph into a video. We're going to show a quick video before we transition to inviting some more people on the stage. So if we're ready and queued up, we can go right now. It's our job as adults to actually change the trajectory of a life of a child. And our school district is trying to say that we can't do this on our own if we want to be great at that. If we want to be wonderful for every child, we need these partnerships and relationships with these entities who care about the same thing we do and also have the talent and the desire to serve just like we do.
We're at Amana Academy, an amazing school, and they think we're here to deliver some Give, Serve, Love boxes that some of your kids packed, and we are going to do that, but we also have a check for them, which is going to be a huge surprise.
You said that you wanted to be able to help kids who can't go on field trips. Maybe they can go on the experience learnings, and we hope that will help.
We're looking for more than just a partnership. I'm interested in our schools having a relationship, which is truly more organic than just a series of things that we do to support kids, but it's actually this ongoing discussion and discourse about how we serve the very need that's in front of us that's the same.
Hey everybody, here we are at Elkins Point Middle School. We're here to show the teachers some love. We brought them little gifts to encourage them in the incredible work that they are doing. This is really, really big.
Well, that's a check from our church to you guys to say thanks for what you do, but also to be able to help students that you guys want to help.
I believe every single school in our entire county should have that kind of relationship. And I think it's possible here. I think it's possible in Fulton County. And the fact is, we can have the most talented staff, and it still won't be enough. Our people, our adults, will benefit through these partnerships and relationships, because what it does is it just adds more talent, it adds more passion, and it adds more kind of hands on deck to this work. Thinking we could have probably just shown the video and skipped this whole deal, right? Of me talking to you. But I want to thank you also for that video, as well as that's an opportunity for us to send that out and send the message specific to expectation and hope for us in the future. At this point in time, we're going to be inviting some people up to talk about their experience, because I think it's important that we do learn from one another in this work. As I mentioned, one challenge is we don't know how to do it, and the other one is fear from doing it. So at this point in time, let's invite up Kendra Smith from Elkins Point, Sharice Campbell from Amana Academy, and Mira Joe from North Point to talk about their experience. Thank you very much. That's your table. Thank you.
Have the fancy one. Awesome.
Testing, 1, 2.
Yeah. So I'm Amira Joe with North Point Community Church.
Kendra Smith, principal of Elkins Point Middle.
Sharice Campbell. Sharice Campbell, principal of Amana Academy.
Did you click it on? Right.
How about this one? Oh, that's nice.
Awesome. So North Point Community Church has been a partner of with Amana Academy and Elkins Point Middle School just under 2 years, actually. So it's a fairly new relationship, and it's been absolutely fantastic to work with these amazing leaders in our community. So thank you for that. Yeah. And I have to say, when we first had the idea to reach out to our schools in our community, I wasn't really sure what to expect in terms of would they be open to talking with the church? Because Jeff talked about that line of church and state, but I didn't let fear stop us. So we reached out, and Sharice and Kendra were very open, and they said yes, let's do this. And we started small, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but they were open to it. They were open to talking, open to engaging with us. So we were extremely excited about that. So.
Yeah. Amira's right. So she just literally picked up the phone and said, hey, I'd love to have a few minutes with you to talk about a partnership. And it was an immediate yes for me. And the reason why is because I didn't look at it from any other perspective than we have kids that need help. They have people that can help. And so when you start with a very simple entry of what you're trying to do, you leave out all of the fear that comes with the partnership idea when you partner with faith-based.
I think what was, I always think back to that initial conversation with Amira, and she came in so humbly, and she said, would it be okay if we came in and brought some goodies for your teachers and did some painting around would it be okay? When you showing up? That was so it was just amazing how respectfully she approached that relationship, and we were able to co-develop it to make sure that it fit the needs of both organizations.
Yeah. And our goal, was to start out and not necessarily test the waters, but to, just to start that initial relationship on easy ground, I would say, and to progress from there. We've been able to do a lot of exciting things with Amana and Elkins, and it's been really fun to kind of watch that relationship develop between our organizations. And it's really what we aim for is a true partnership, a relationship with one another, one in which we can say yes and no to each other, because we want to basically do what fits your environment, your school, and basically partner with you and walk alongside you and support the children in our community. So super important.
You know, I think what also really made it a great beginning of a partnership was the fact that the first opportunity that we had with North Point was them somewhat giving, meaning it wasn't in the classroom, it didn't touch the children per se, it was a project, as you mentioned. They came in and they helped us paint our gymnasium, the bottom half of our gymnasium. And I bet there were 40 people moving about the building, greeting the kids, greeting the teachers, but there to help. And so it was that entry safe zone, if you will, for that first initial activity. And I think that went just so far because the teachers were like, you know, I go to their church. What do they need? They need anything to drink? Do they need something? I mean, so it just evolved so beautifully. And the next, activity or the next thing that we did together was the wish list for our students. Yeah. And so we began to move throughout the building with the work, keeping it focused on the kids and not anything else. And it really just began to evolve. And I think your mentorship is a beautiful reflection of what it can really be when it gets big. But we're at the very beginning stages of, and we're 2 years in. So this is not a race that you're running in a sprint. It really is, a slow walk somewhat, if you will, together.
Yeah. And I'll talk a little bit about the mentorship program. So then, after that initial project, we talked about some additional projects and started to develop that relationship. And then it got, really close to that line, right? So Dr. Rose talked about the line, and we talked about what would it look like to do an ask for mentors for our students at the church. And, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm thinking of the guy showing up your door with a pamphlet that, you ask about a math problem, and then someone asks you if you found Jesus. So I was nervous.
You didn't want us to do that?
It's not about what I want or what I need. It's about, what's appropriate in the school setting, right? So we were really nervous as we talked about what that would look like. And, Dr. Rose talked about having that infrastructure. And that infrastructure was so important because when Amira sat down with me, she had the actual curriculum for me to look at. So this is what's going to be expected of a mentor, to walk through. And we talked about, okay, so, what does that look like to work with students? And, we don't really know all of these folks very well. The church was ready to, provide the background checks for, any mentor that signed up. So, we started out really small. So this was our first year of doing the mentoring program. We had 24 kids that were involved, and we just started with our counselor and social worker and looked at, what kids would benefit most from just having some extra attention, And this year we're hoping to grow it to even larger because the kids love it, the mentors love it, the teachers love it, that there's somebody else that they can count on and say, so-and-so's having a rough day. They'll even shoot the, mentor an email and say, so-and-so was asking about you today. And the kids can't wait till they come that next week.
Yeah. And that was the mentor program was something that, we had never done before at North Point Community Church. And we're like, can we try this? Can we do this? And we started really small because we wanted to just kind of like work out all the kinks and make it right. And so we did that very first year. And so this coming school year, we're really looking forward to the expansion of that program to incorporate hopefully over 100 kids in that. So we're super excited about that. But one thing as a faith-based organization, what we were looking for our school partnerships was to basically partner and not compete with them. Partner and basically support them in what they're doing in their efforts. And we have a strategy within our church to go fewer and deeper. So we want to develop a strong partnership relationship with a few organizations, with a few schools, and basically go deep with them. So we can do things, like painting their walls when they need to, doing a Christmas program, doing a mentoring program, providing checks, as you saw in that video. We can't do that with every school in our area, but we can go deep with the ones that we've started a relationship with. And hopefully that's something that other, schools and faith-based organizations can emulate as well.
And I think, I just want to go back to this idea of projects. It does start with a project. I mean, the initial entry, part of any relationship is a project, whether it's a date project, whatever it is. But I think that the idea of a project makes it feel okay on both sides, that there is a beginning and an ending to what we are going to agree to do in this event, just so the eyes and the hearts and minds can feel comfortable about what's actually going to happen. But then when you string those projects along, that's where the relationship begins to build. And so for 2 years, we've been working with Amira inside and outside of our schools. So it is to have a relationship is so different than a project or just this entity of a partnership even, because you begin to think, well, maybe I can help her do this, or maybe she can help me do this, that has nothing to do with the actual school, but it affects the greater good. And so I want to just kind of piggyback on what Cherise said about that fear of, what are people going to say, what are people going to do? So when we were working on our Make-A-Wish type of holiday gift giving, she said, okay, so let's pick 150 kids who might need a little smile for Christmas, or an even bigger smile for Christmas. And so what can we do? And she said, I'd love to be able to get one item from about 150 of your kids about something that they really, really want for Christmas or for the holidays. And so she initially said, and went back to her group and came back and said, so we've got a plan. So we'd like to take 150 of your students. We have students who would like to write letters to your students about the thing. I said, well, but minus the letters, we can go forth with the project, because writing letters directly to our kids would then open up who and when and why. And I think the purpose of all of this is to honor the mission and not who's giving or who's getting. And it was just, in her mind, well, we want the kids to be able to connect, but for us to be able to say, let's give and take, and find a happy place. So it's not on anyone's terms how we create these missions, if you will. It is just an agreement about what's right for kids, so that we can get to a place that's comfortable on both sides of that line. And it ended up being something really beautiful. So each student picked one thing that they've always wanted for Christmas. And it was delivered in an individual box, very simple, with their name on the top. So the parents came on a Saturday to pick up their items so it wouldn't happen during the weekday. So my counselors worked on that weekend, and they came around the back of the school, picked up their one box for their child or children. They took it home. They could have put their name on it. They could have put whoever's name they wanted to put on that gift. It didn't have to come from North Point. But the love of that came from North Point. So it's not about standing up or holding up a church or an individual faith entity. It is about making those hearts feel the way we want those hearts to be felt. And in a church, now I'm going back to church just a little bit. So being raised in a church, our number one mission was to help. In my church, we help. We want to do good for the community. Well, how do we do that? We find a place that needs help and need people to help them do better for their kids. It is probably one of the most school-changing, not life-changing too, but school-changing aspects of the things that we do.
So just going back to that concept of the partnership, Amira touched on briefly that, if there's something that doesn't work for your school, you can say no. And our school actually did choose to say no to the, gift giving at Christmas time, because we have a very international population and the holidays vary so much. So we choose not to focus on any holiday throughout the year. And they were very open to that. But the gift giving from North Point came in the form of backpacks at the beginning of the year. That was a fantastic project that they did. They provided a filled backpack for every student on our free and reduced lunch program. So that equated to probably about 450 backpacks that were full with supplies for that student to start off the ground on equal ground with every other student in the school. So just, it can vary just about what your school needs.
Yeah. And so when the backpacks were finished being dropped off at her school, Amira calls me midday, Kendra, I have 600 fully filled backpacks. Do you want? So when can you pull around the loading dock?
So I pulled up in a box truck.
The teacher sure did. And she literally was driving. I was like, who is driving? She's so tiny. So teachers that were on their planning rolled around the back of the school and unloaded 600. I have 1,100 kids. So almost half of our building, which is equal to the amount of free and reduced lunch students that we have. So we were a benefactor of that blessing that came her way. And speaking of benefactor, I just want to make this point too. I so lovingly and passionately sit on the board for North Fulton Community Charities. And I know that North Point Church works very closely and supports NFCC in a great way. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to also mention, we are the benefactors of their work. So our families go to North Fulton Community Charities for help and support. North Point Church helps them fulfill their mission. So we are actually serving or being served by an entity or two entities that are working for the greater good of all the kids in our community. So it's not just about a business partner and a school. It can happen in so many different and unique ways if you dare to be a little bit courageous and different.
Yeah. I also just want to touch on the impact that it's had on our teachers, because yes, it's fantastic for students, but you know we've all read the book. If you feed the teachers so they don't eat the students, right? So you know, really, that's a lot of our work as building leaders is empowering the teachers so they can do the work in the classroom with the students. So when we got the backpack donation. Our teachers actually went out to deliver the backpacks to their students. So we combined that as a learning experience for our teachers to do home visitations with the kids to drop off the backpacks at the door and, you know, shake hands. And some of them got invited to sit down for dinner while they were there. They weren't expecting all that. But, I mean, it's really, you know, important for all parties. That's what a partnership is about. It's not just about one party giving. There are so many people that are giving and receiving in the relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm going to interrupt because we're actually going to expand here the stage here in a second and, you know, show my appreciation for articulating the transition from a project to a partnership to a relationship. The fact that it does take time, it does take the willingness to be honest, and the concept is around serving, but serving kids as opposed to serving the entity. So it's not about serve the school, it's about serving the school because we're trying to serve kids. So I really kind of heard that in that discussion. And then, too, you notice it started here, and then it came to this, and then it came to this. And by the way, you're a couple of years in, right? Just a couple of years in. So I think that's important to notice, that this is not an overnight transition, but within time, we can expand our capacity for kids. So we're going to invite two more people up here to the stage. Start Virginia Spencer of Action Ministries, who partnered with Vickery Mill, as well as Pastor Edwin Turnspeed, and they have really focused on partnering with Tri-Cities and McLaren High School. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to ask both of you to mention very briefly some of those partnerships and what they've been, and then we're going to this is like a warm-up for what comes next. Because what comes next is you're going to ask questions now, panel will answer, and then you're going to be talking. So this is a warm-up to getting you to talk, so to speak. So Edwin, do you want to start and just tell us a little bit about the partnership and kind of describe the parameters of that?
Yes, hi. I'm Edwin Turnspeed. I'm one of the pastors at Impact Church in East Point, Georgia. Our partnership with the two schools that Dr. Rose mentioned, McLaren Success Academy and Tri-Cities High School, actually started with Tri-Cities about 2 years ago and McLaren under 6 months. I have to say this, Dr. Rose, at Impact, partner schools have been a part of our DNA, if you will, for about 10 years when we first started. And it's because you're looking at a former educator who sat in a school for about 10 years and taught high school math. No, I don't need a job. I knew the power of the faith-based relationship, as Dr. Rose called it, by being a teacher, and saw how a school basically came in and adopted the school that I was serving at. And once called into this work, realized that we didn't want to be just a tenant because we were actually worshiping in a school. We wanted to be a partner. And there was a statement that one of our coaches said to us 10 years ago, said, if the church left, would the community miss you? And from that, we realized that we wanted to be in relationship with the school. And from that, we have 5 schools that we partner with, along with Tri-Cities and McLaren. They're specifically with those 2. I was actually getting a text message as Dr. Rose was speaking from our community outreach director, who was giving me the update as to what we've done with Tri-Cities. So I'm going to be reading from my phone. But we have provided school lunches for the football team. We have coordinated angel tree donations around any holiday event from our attendees. We have, believe it or not, gone to a high school homecoming football game on a Friday night and provided a photo booth for all of the students to come. And if you can imagine high school students getting free photos and being able to put them on Instagram and Snapchat, we were able to provide that. But also, one of the things, as the principal from Amana Academy said, we recognize that in order to get into the classroom, we need to feed the teachers. So we provided a teacher breakfast for every partner school every single year. And just to simply say, as you spoke eloquently, we love you. We recognize the work that you do, and we want to support you. And we recognize that feeding you is one way that we can support you. If you've ever had a school lunch, and I used to eat them all the time, it was great to get some catered food every now and then. So that's what we've done with Tri-Cities. Now, McLaren, as many people know, in Fulton County, is one of those schools that lots of people don't necessarily like to go in. So that's where we feel like that God has called us. And so we were fortunate to get a second campus about 2 years ago that's literally in the district of McLaren. And me being who I am, I said, no, we're going to go over there. And so the question of how we started is very funny. Because I'm an educator, I like to walk in the school building and ask one question: what do you need? And fortunately, anybody who knows Dr. Woodley, she has a long list of things that she needs. And one of the first things that she said was, well, we have a lot of at-risk students who just need people who will be here. And as you said eloquently, we are here to help. And so fortunately, a lot of our attendees have already had that DNA in them. So the ask was easy. And so we walked in, and we have about 7 or 8 male mentors every 2 weeks that go into McLaren, and it starts off with a simple conversation. And one of the things that happened was that one of the young men who heard us talk to him, we really had to have a conversation. Hey, take the hoodie off and take the earphones out. Please pay attention to us. And one of the young men said to me, well, you know, I really want to be I want to be a chef. And so one of the men who was there with me heard that. And this man knows a lot of people. And so he calls me and he says, hey, guess what? I know a chef. Can we have that chef come into our mentoring session? And I said, well, sure, of course. And he walked in, he told his story, and after that, that young man reached out to that chef and got a job. Mm-hmm. And so here you have a young man who is in an at-risk situation, who really needs money in his pocket, and the school can't do that, right? They're trying to teach them how to read, write, come to school on time, you know, all of the normal things that educators have to deal with. But that child needed a job, and we were able to meet that need, which then, as Dr. Woodley reminded me, actually propelled him to do better in school. And so those are the kinds of things that we've been able to do with those 2 schools.
Hi, Is it on? Turn it on. Hi, I'm Virginia Spencer with Action Ministries. Since 1963, Action Ministries has been working to bridge the faith communities, the business communities, and the education partners in Georgia. Together, our mission is to mobilize local communities to remove the obstacles of poverty so that families can break the cycle of generational poverty. And our hunger relief program started many years ago, and how we started to intersect with the education sector was through our Smart Lunch, Smart Kid program. I know many churches in this room are actively volunteering through Smart Lunch, Smart Kid. That program is very key to making summer meals accessible to so many children who don't have access to get to sites where there are free meals. And so volunteers, including from the Impact Church, Ben Hill United Methodist, Cascade United Methodist, as well as hundreds of other churches in 15 counties now serve over 100 apartment communities, mobile home communities, and dilapidated home communities, frankly, that feed children into schools, that overwhelmingly feed children into schools that are underperforming not because of the school, not because of the parents, but because of poverty. And poverty is often the elephant in the room that no one talks about because I believe it's overwhelming. We don't know how to tackle it. We don't know how to start solving that challenge. And there are so many people involved. But one thing that we have learned is that there are a few things the churches can do and that volunteers can do that make a dramatic impact. One of those is you start with hunger relief. A hungry child can't learn. A child that starves over the Christmas break and comes back having lost 10 pounds probably isn't going to start off on the right leg when they start back to school. Children that go neglected and hungry over the summertime, there's a reason that children in poverty lose 30% of a grade level learning when they go back to school every summer. And that progresses year after year. So one of the things that we learned, I had a program director that worked with us for 23 years, leading after-school programming throughout the shelters in downtown Atlanta, specializing in leading volunteers to engage in after-school programming with homeless children. Often these children were only in that program for 2 or 3 months. It seemed like a kind of program that doesn't make a big long-term impact. But starting 15 to 20 years after she began, we started getting phone calls, emails, requests from young adults saying, "Can you help me find Miss Ginger Cashin? Can you please tell her I graduated? I'm going to college." One young lady said, I'm getting my master's in public health at Emory University, and I want to go do hunger relief programming overseas. I always would ask, well, how did you know Miss Ginger? Did you volunteer? No. I was a student in the shelter. And she was our teacher. She brought the volunteers, and they tutored us. And so I would every time go back to Ginger and say, well, how do you make an impact in 2 or 3 months? How do volunteers make an impact with such a light touch in such dire circumstances? And she said, over the years, I've learned one thing. Those children don't believe they're smart. Everything around them reinforces a negative self-perspective. If they go to school and they start learning from kindergarten through 3rd grade and they don't see the ability to learn quickly because they don't recognize the obstacles of poverty, they don't know why they're falling behind or why they can't concentrate. They don't know how moving schools because of homelessness and housing instability affects their performance and ability to keep up with their peers. All they know is that I'm stupid. I can't do well in school. This must not be for me. I'm not a smart kid. So what our programming learned and has continued to do is, first of all, you have to teach through your interaction with these children with compassion and strength of character that you are a smart kid. You are a smart kid. And once you help to instill that confidence in them and somebody continues to tell them you have to do a little more, you have to tutor them, you have to mentor them, you have to help them begin to see that they can do well in school. We focus our programming very heavily on basic reading, writing, and arithmetic, helping that child learn their sight words, helping them learn to read and write successfully, learning their basics of math, and practicing reading. And by doing that, they find out that if they go to school all of a sudden, their teacher is impressed, they're getting good grades, and it's the one thing in their life that they can control and get a good outcome. And so it's very empowering. And Ginger told me, she said, Virginia, if you can help more children start to believe they're smart and empower them to see that they can do well in school, even if you work with them for 3 months in a homeless shelter or in an after-school program at a school or a local church, or in a summer enrichment program like we do in a housing community. If you can do those 2 things, they become hooked on that success and they do the rest. We focus a lot of our programming on kindergarten through 3rd grade because kindergarten through 3rd grade is critical. 2/3 of children who aren't able to read proficiently by the end of 3rd grade, going into 4th grade, that means they've missed their basics. 2/3 of them are likely to experience poverty and or jail as adults. In Fulton County, 53% of children tested as not proficient in 2015. Over 80% of those kids are in poverty. And so if our goal is to come into these churches and these schools and work with the families that are most in need, meet these children where they're at, we have to remember academics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And we encourage you guys, what we've started doing, and we do it in Atlanta, we're expanding our programming in the West End, where Cascade United Methodist, Ben Hill United Methodist help us do work during the summertime, in the East Point area and in areas where Impact Church partners with us for summer feeding. We're starting to come together and challenge churches to do what we're doing now in North Fulton with Vickery Mill Elementary and Roswell United Methodist Church, North Point. A handful of churches have come alongside us and helped us begin to start after-school programming that's sustainable, that has the infrastructure and the funding and the professional curriculum guidance to make it sustainable, more than what one church by themselves can do. It costs, we have a budget of what it costs to form that program, to make it happen and to make it last. And we're starting to ask for churches to come together. If you're in the communities I've mentioned, please reach out to us. We need 3 or 4 strategic partners in each community to make it possible, and together we'll make a long-term impact. Thank you.
So the one thing I think we would all agree to is that as we listen to these stories, as we listen to some of this work, we're impressed and inspired. You know, we have currently in the room, we have 3 of our critical leaders. We have our board chair, Linda Bryant. She's in the room somewhere, I believe. Thank you, Linda. Vice Chair Linda McCain over here, and board member Kate Stewart here. Our school board has established some norms, some things we want to be known for. They're actually in our future strategic plan, and they're very specific. They're very clear, and one of them is around community collaboration, which it really is about this. We want to be known for that. So kind of the dream, my dream, maybe our dream, is that this impressive, inspiring work is something that one day we can say, yeah, that's what we do. That's just what we do in Fulton County. These are examples, but they are examples that are constantly growing because that's who we are. So I really appreciate you painting the picture for us specifically as to kind of what that can look like or what that should look like one day. I think we're going to do just 2 or 3 questions for the panel, and then we're going to get you standing, sitting, talking. So I don't know exactly how this is going to work. We have a microphone. Is there a question for the panel? I see one hand right here in the middle.
Okay, as I was saying, I would love to talk to you about what you're talking about, and every one of your presentations is so moving in terms of what can be accomplished. Okay, here we go. My name is Michael Bernstein. I'm a rabbi in Alpharetta. But what I wanted to talk to you about is, or ask about, is every one of these presentations is very moving, and I also appreciated what Dr. Rose said about the fear about coming up to the line and how to sort of think about that. The question that I have, especially as a rabbi within this community, and I imagine that this is something that I'm not the only person in a faith-based organization to think about, is I see that line certainly as something that people fear because of the legal implications, but I also see a deep purpose to that line. The idea that when we do work with our communities that are not within our own faith organizations, there is a very powerful purpose for knowing the difference between how we bring our inspiration and our willingness to work and what inspires us about our own faith without, necessarily bringing the part of it that line is meant to protect. In other words, it's not just about not crossing it because it's not appropriate and we could get sued, but there's a way in which it affects us, and I think ideally that we learn from the institutions we're helping as well, that we can bring our faith into these spaces in a way that also supports people who believe things very different than us, or who don't, or people who have identities, sexual or gender identities, that our own faith-based organizations might think differently about. And I'm wondering, especially for those in the work of faith-based organizations, what you think about how you bring that experience and that respect for that part of why we work together with that type of separation into the work you do, even as the relationship grows and the trust grows and there's less things that prevent you from bringing those things into the work.
I'm on, Tim. Okay, for North Point, I think a great example is actually Amana Academy. Amana Academy is a school that has a very heavy Muslim population, and we're not Muslim at North Point, so we go there and we are welcomed with open arms, and we go there and we're not, like Cherie said earlier, we're not, trying to make everyone a Jesus believer, but we just go there showing love and doing what we do and partner with them, and in our actions, it's indirectly, they know where we're coming from. They know we're from North Point Community Church. They know we're Christians. But we don't have to shout that or tell them that, every time we come. It's kind of there. But yet and still, they welcome us with open arms. And Sharice, you can add to that? I don't know. Borrow this one.
Yeah, so like I said, when the relationship first started, we were really nervous about that also. So it was important to start with a project to see how our community would receive it. Before the project happened, I talked to some of our parents in our parent organization just to kind of test the waters. And then you could kind of see the impact when we posted pictures after the project day on our Facebook page, and we had so many diverse likes on there. So, there's lots of different data endpoints. You can see how your community is receiving it and adjust accordingly.
Does that answer your question?
I was going to say for us, as a former faith-based, I think Amanda hit it on the head. It's love. We're not going in proselytizing. We're not going to ask for homework and then say, do you know Jesus? Is the only way we're going to check it. But we will, we want to be what that child, school, principal, parent community needs. And I've always said that the most powerful question we've ever asked is, how can we help you? And as a faith-based, as a pastor, oftentimes we talk a lot. I put that out there. And I challenge other pastors to ask the question and be quiet and listen. And then as they say what they need, either put it in your phone, make a note, do whatever you got to do, and then go back and challenge your community to meet that need. For us, that's what Jesus did. Jesus met the need. And so for us, we're partnered with anybody. We used to say that from day one. If you want to help somebody, we don't care what you believe, we'll go help you. And so we've done that for 10 years.
And Action Ministries works with hundreds and hundreds of different churches and faith communities, as well as businesses, and very large corporations throughout Atlanta also partner with us, as well as HUD and the VA. Because we do walk that line, We believe that ultimately when you help educate our faith community partners who provide such compassionate volunteers that are critical to our success, you count on those congregations to train their people to be compassionate and to want to serve people. And that's what makes them exemplary volunteers. But you also want to create a social network around the families that are in poverty and that are in need, because they don't just need financial relief. They also need social networks. They need a community around them. That's why we partner with faith partners that are in the communities of need that we're serving, so that it builds those relationships, so that even if there are faith lines that are being crossed, that's actually beneficial because this is one community. And that's been very beneficial to the families that we're working with, to build that exposure in ways that they may never have had without the cross-sector communications.
My educator and facilitator is kind of coming to be, and I'm going to change our direction. Because if we asked a good question like that again, you're not getting out of here on time. That was phenomenal. So this is the next step in our process, is we just want people to talk. You don't have to stay where you are. You may stand and walk around and go find somebody, find one of these panel members to ask a question to. You can wave me down. We just want you to talk. We do have some questions that you can discuss, but I will say this. If you don't talk about those questions, that's fine. If you talk about something else, if you truly just get to know one another, that's also fine. About 5 minutes to noon, we're going to stop. Don't sneak out yet, because we will finish then. We will do a very quick closing, but now it's informal, face-to-face, around the table in circles discussion. Make sense? So if we could just take a second and give our panel a round of applause for this and their work. Thank you. Okay, talk away. Thank you very much.